Madam President, last week I came to the floor to express my support for the Cyber Information Sharing Act that we are dealing with today. The bipartisan vote that happened later that day of 83 to 14 was an important step in the right direction to really deal with this issue. The debate, I think, has been encouraging. We need to deal with this threat to our economy. It's a threat to our security. It's a threat to our privacy, and we need to deal with it now. As I've said and others have said before, if we wait until there is an event that gets people's attention in such a dramatic way that everybody suddenly realizes what's at stake, there's no telling what kind of overreaction the Congress would make. This has been a good debate at the time we should have it. Now, of course, we need to move on. There have been a lot of amendments offered. Many have been accepted by the bill's managers. Today, we'll finish with almost all certainty the remaining amendments pending on the bill and hopefully finish the bill itself. A lot of these amendments have been very well intentioned. In fact, I suspect they've all been well intentioned. But in many cases, they just fundamentally undermine the core purpose of the bill, which is to have voluntary, real-time sharing of cyber threats, to allow that sharing to be between the private entities and the federal government, and even for private entities to be able to share with each other. This is a bill that creates the liability protections and the antitrust protections that particular kind of sharing would allow. And of course, throughout this whole debate, there have been lots of discussion about how do we protect our liberty in an information age? How do we have both security and liberty? And having served for a number of years on both the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee, in the last Congress serving on the Armed Services Committee, and this Congress on the Armed Services Appropriations Committee, there is no argument in any of those committees that one of our great vulnerabilities is cybersecurity and how we protect ourselves. We saw just in the last few days, the head of the CIA had his own personal account hacked into by apparently a teenager who then is in the process of sharing that information. If the head of the CIA and the head of the Homeland Security doesn't know how to protect their own personal information, obviously information much more valuable than they might personally share also is at jeopardy. You know, we do need to ensure that we protect people's personal liberties. We need to do that in a way that defends the country. Both of those are primary responsibilities that we accept when we take these jobs, and certainly our responsibility to the Constitution itself. I think Chairman Burr and Vice Chairman Feinstein have done a good job bringing that balance together. This bill is carefully crafted in a way that really creates a number of different layers of efforts to try to do both of those things. First, the bill only encourages sharing, doesn't require it, doesn't require anybody to share anything they don't want to share, but it encourages the sharing of cyber threats. It works on the techniques and the malware used by hackers to share that information. It specifically does not authorize the sharing of personal information, and in fact, the bill explicitly directs the federal government to develop and make available to the public guidelines to protect privacy and civil liberties in the course of sharing the information that is shared. The Attorney General is required to review these guidelines on a regular basis. The bill mandates reports on the implementation and any privacy impacts by the Inspector General, by the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, to ensure that these threats to privacy are constantly looked at. And Senator Flake's amendment, which we accepted as part of the bill just a few minutes ago, guarantees that this issue has to be revisited. Now, I gave a speech at Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri about a month ago at the beginning of the 70th anniversary year of Winston Churchill giving the Iron Curtain speech on that campus. And talking about liberty versus security there, I said I thought one of the things we should always do is have a time that forced us as a Congress to revisit any of the laws that we have looked at in recent years to be sure that we protect ourselves and protect our liberty at the same time. This is a voluntary bill, and maybe that wouldn't have been quite as absolutely necessary here, but I was pleased to see that requirement again added to this bill as it has been to other bills like this. This is a responsible bill, and the people you and I work for, Madam President, I think can feel good about the responsible balance that it has. It defends our security, but it also protects our liberty. And I look forward to its final passage today. The debate would lead me to believe, and the votes would lead me to believe that's going to happen. But of course, we need to continue to work now to put a bill on the president's desk that does that. There still remains, Madam President, things to be done. One of the things that I've worked on for the last 3 years, Senator Carper and I have worked together on this. Senator Warner has been very engaged in this discussion, as has Chairman Thune. And that's the protection of sensitive personal information, as well as how do we protect the systems themselves. Now, clearly, this information sharing will help in that fight. There is no doubt about that. But in addition to supporting this bill, I want to continue to work with my colleagues to see that we have a way to notify people in a consistent way when their information has been shared. There are at least a dozen different state laws that address how you secure personal information, and there are 47 different state laws that address how you tell people if their information has been stolen. That's too much to comply with. We need to find one standard. This patchwork of laws really is a nightmare for everybody trying to comply, and frankly, a nightmare for citizens who get all kinds of different notices in all kinds of different ways. Without a consistent national standard pertaining to securing information, without a consistent national standard pertaining to what happens when you have a data breach and your information is wrongly taken by someone else, we've only done part of this job. And so, Madam President, I want us to continue to work to find the solutions there. We need to find a way to establish that standard for both data security and data breach. I'm going to continue to work with you and my other colleagues. Our committee, the Commerce Committee, is a critical place for that to happen. I wish we could have done this on this bill. We didn't get it done on this bill. But I would see now the first step to do what we need to do is dealing with the problem of cybersecurity in the way this bill does, and then finish the job at some later time. So I look forward to seeing this bill passed today. I'm certainly urging my colleagues to vote for it. I think it has the protections that the people we work for would want to see. And I am grateful to my colleagues for giving me a few moments here to speak, and would yield the floor.